In order to be able to successfully deliver a project in a company, you need to know the overall project organizational structures and the overall company's organizational structures. You need to know the framework within which the project will be delivered. What is the project's organization? Who do you report to? Who does your business sponsor report to? What is the power, what is the authority that you as a project manager have? What's the power and authority that your project sponsor has? Is this a hierarchical organization? Is this a project-driven organization? Is this a matrix-based organization? What is the overall framework within which the organization is structured, and what is the structure? How do projects get delivered? How do projects get initiated? How do projects get accepted? What is the organizational culture? Is this a do everything at all costs to maximize profit company? Is this a company that values employee participation? What is the culture? How does the organization work? What makes the organization work? What makes the organization successful? You need to be aware of the overall organizational infrastructure, culture, norms, and you need to ensure that your project organizational structure, norms, and infrastructure is consistent with, or at least when it's not consistent with the organizational structures, you have processes in place to deal with those incompatibilities. One of the key elements of ensuring your project is going to be successfully organized is to understand the overall organizational framework. And that begins with the structural framework. What is the project's organization chart? What is the company's organization chart? Who has the power? Who has the authority to ensure that your project gets delivered successfully? You must be aware of the structural organization for your project and for your organization. You must know who reports to who and who has the power, who has the authority. Another key component is the human resource component. In other words, how are employees treated? What is the organizational norm? Are individual and career aspirations more important than specific project and maybe even organizational aspirations? Do employees come first, and with happy employees, successful organizations followed? Or is this an organizational focused company where satisfying organizational and project requirements comes first, and then individual and career aspirations come second? What is the work ethic in the organization? Is this a 40-hour week company, or is this a 45 or 50 or 50, 65 or 80-hour based company? Is this a company where overtime is expected, almost demanded, or is this an organization where overtime is frowned upon because the belief is people are more effective when they're well rested and happy in their overall organization and in their individual private life? What's the attitude in the company for training versus work? Is it more important to ensure our employees are successfully trained, appropriately trained, have all of the necessary skills before they start on a job? Or is this an organization where on-the-job training, learning by mistakes, is the norm? What's the culture for the organization in terms of, is the current project the most important thing? Or is the overall organizational requirements more important? If a staff member, if a team member on your project has to choose between being successful on the project and making the organization more successful, where are they going to fall? What's the political framework? And this is internal politics and external politics. Who needs to be made happy? Who has the power? Who supplies the leadership? Who are the supporters? Who are the detractors? What political environment is your project working within? Who do you need to ensure is happy internally for your project to be successful? Who do you need to work externally to ensure that your project is going to deliver successfully? And finally, symbolic. What environment does the organization work within? Is this an organization where the CEO walks around, meets employees, talks to employees? Or is this an organization where senior management sit in their desks in their corner offices and are treated with awe? What is the dress code? Is this a very formal organization where full business attire is expected every day? Is this an organization that supports dress down? What are the organizational norms? Is this a functional organization? Is this a punctual organization where adherence to policy is number one? Is this a friendly ad hoc environment, or is this a very formal environment? You need to know the total organizational framework. Who has the power? How are humans, how are employees treated within the company? What's the political environment? Who do you need to turn into an ally? How do you deal with foes to your project? And what's the symbolic organizational framework? What are the norms? What's the policy? What's the procedures for operating within this company? It's very important as a project manager that you know the overall organizational structure, both for the organization and for the project. Is this company primarily a functional organization? And by a functional organization, that is the traditional organizational chart, where you have the head, the CEO, at the top, broken down into individual business units or individual functional areas with appropriate levels of VP or director ownership of the business units or the functional areas, broken down underneath them to individual managers, broken down to individual staff members. So the functional definition is very much your traditional hierarchical traditional business organization. Probably a direct opposite to that is the project-based organization. A project-based organization, again, obviously has a head, but underneath the head you would have individual project managers reporting directly to the project senior management, and the individual project managers have project team members who report directly to the project manager and are responsible for specific project delivery. Project-based organizations typically do not happen outside of organizations who do project-based work on a consultancy or a fee basis. The more common type of organization structure that I'm seeing in most businesses today is some form of a matrix relationship, where the primary relationship is still functional, where you have the organization broken down by business units, but within that you have very specific cross-functional, cross-business unit relationships where different people report to different business unit managers, different functional managers, as required by specific engagements. And again, from the viewpoint of this Nugget series, those engagements would be project-based engagements. So although we've defined these as three unique, three very specific forms of organizations, most organizations you're going to see variations of these. So within an organization, within a specific project itself, you're going to see very different organizational, functional, project-based matrix relationships based on each individual specific project requirement. It's important that you understand which combination of functional project matrix-based environment you're going to be operating within, because it is going to determine your power and your authority within which you can affect project success. If you are in a project-based organization, you have more or less ultimate power to ensure your project is successful. If you're in a functional organization, you may have limited power within which to enact specific project success factors. And a matrix is going to be a hybrid of that. We will discuss each of these organizational structures in much more detail throughout this nugget. A functional organization is very much traditional organizational structure, where you have your business head, your CEO, your president, whatever the main functional ownership for the company is going to be. And then that will break down into the number of business units. So we have business unit 1, 2, 3, 4. There may be also specific specializations. So this is a business unit dealing with customer facing, customer facing, customer facing. And the specialization may be internal accounting, internal IT, or whatever the various organizational specializations may be. Then within each of our business units and our specializations, we do the appropriate levels of breakdown to management, through to staff, and so on throughout an organization. So a functional organization is very much the traditional business organization chart, company organization chart that everybody is familiar with. From a project viewpoint, which is what we're focused on in this nugget, when you're working within a functional business unit, a functional organization, typically the projects themselves are delivered within a specific functional area. So let's assume this business unit has a need for a project. Because we're operating in a functional area, the project itself is traditionally going to be limited to that particular business unit. Obviously, a project needs a project manager, so this line manager gets assigned project management responsibilities as well. And that's one of the key components to project delivery in a true functional environment, is a existing manager takes on the responsibilities of project management. And then within the project team, individual team members, and I'm going to put X's through them, not that they're being eliminated, but to identify that they are being tagged with project delivery responsibilities. So here we have an existing functional manager taken on additional project management responsibilities, and members of that functional organization being identified as the participants, as the team members for the project team. Now, depending on how the functional organization is structured, these team members may be the same as the functional manager, in addition to their normal duties as assigned, have additional project-based responsibilities, or they may be relieved of their routine, day-to-day functional responsibilities and become focused on the project environment. The key to project delivery, as I said, in a functional environment is the project is traditionally delivered within the business function. So this business unit manager retains ownership, retains responsibility for the project, and identifies the entire project team within his or her specific business unit. On first review, a project organization may look very much the same as a functional organization. We still have a business head, the CEO, the president, and reporting to them we have a number of project managers. Within the project managers we have a breakdown for specific functional managers or line managers. I'm calling them project leads, and then reporting to the project leads are the project staff. So how is this different from a functional organization? The difference being these are direct, focused project managers. These direct reports to the head do not have any functional responsibilities, do not have any business responsibilities. They are bona fide project managers whose only responsibility to the organization is the delivery of projects. Similarly, the project leads do not have other business functional responsibilities. They are focused on project delivery. As well, the project staff themselves are focused on project delivery. So obviously, I think a project-based organization is 100% focused on project delivery. Project managers are focused, dedicated, committed to individual projects. They do not have any other responsibilities, and the entire team is focused on project-based delivery. As mentioned in the introduction to this nugget, a project organization typically does not exist in a traditional business environment. A project-based organization is traditionally limited to organizations that deliver projects professionally, i.e. consulting firms and other organizations that do project-based work on contract basis for organizations. And because their focus is on project delivery, is what allows them to have dedicated project managers and dedicated team members whose only focus is on the actual delivery of the project itself. The more common form of organizational structure from a project delivery viewpoint is some form of matrix structure. In this particular discussion, we're going to discuss a weak matrix. Matrix structures start with traditional functional structure. So this is the same organization chart that we discussed a few minutes ago in terms of the pure functional organization and the functional delivery of projects. The difference being, in a weak matrix, one of the business unit identifies the need for a project and identifies traditionally one of the management levels as being the project manager. Unlike the functional viewpoint for projects, where all of the staff are taken directly from the business unit, in this case we take a staff, and this staff directly from the business unit that has the project requirement, but we say this particular staff member has skills, has knowledge that is needed for the project, and maybe we need this staff member from this specialization and this staff member and this staff member over here. So in a weak matrix, you have the project manager represented as part of the existing management structure for the business unit. Some and often a considerable number of the project team members come directly from the business unit, but other team members are going to come from other business units, from other business units, from other business units, and from other business units. The advantage of the matrix relationship is you're able to pull in special skills, special knowledge from other business units to ensure that the project has all of the skills and all of the knowledge needed to be successful. The disadvantage is these team members still have direct functional reporting relationships back to their individual business units, and there may be conflicts as expectations, as requirements come up, that where the project requirements from the project manager may differ from the functional requirements from the business unit managers. The next form of project delivery organization we're going to discuss is the strong matrix. And the strong matrix starts with the functional organization just as the weak matrix did. The key difference between a strong matrix and the weak matrix that we just discussed is instead of having the project management responsibilities assigned to one of the existing line managers, in a strong matrix relationship, traditionally within the business unit, there is an assigned project manager, and this person is part of the business unit but has specific project management expertise, specific project management knowledge, and is dedicated to project management. The rest of the weak matrix relationship, or the strong matrix relationship, is very much the same. We bring in team members from various parts of the organization, and we use the appropriate skills from these team members from this business unit and from this business unit and the core team members from this business unit to ensure the project is delivered successfully. The key differentiator between a strong matrix and a weak matrix is the assignment of a dedicated, focused, trained, skilled project manager, where this staff project manager has the time, has the skills, has the attention, has the focus, and will be working on nothing but project delivery, where in the weak matrix the line manager had both project delivery responsibilities as well as line delivery responsibilities. Now we've discussed the two ends of the spectrum, the weak versus the strong. As with the earlier discussion on the various project organization forms, there is no single definition of a matrix relationship. Is this absolutely a weak? Is this absolutely a strong? Is this a hybrid that falls on this end of the spectrum versus this end of the spectrum versus this end of the spectrum? And the answer is every single project is going to have its own variation of the strong and the weak matrix relationship. In order to compare the pros and cons of each of these organization structurals, functional versus project versus a weak matrix versus a strong matrix, I've put together this comparison grid where we're going to compare skills of the project manager, availability of the project manager, the authority of the project manager, who has budget ownership, i.e. who has the power to influence and impact the project's success, the availability of staff for the project, and the availability of specific skills for the project. And we'll fill in this grid for each one of our various project organizational structures. So in a functional area, if you can remember, in a functional area, the project manager is assigned from the existing line management responsibility. So a going-in assumption is that the PM skills will be limited. And I'm going to put a question mark on that. There's nothing to say that a line manager would not be an excellent project manager, but because their prime responsibility is functional line management, there is no guarantee that they're going to have the appropriate skills to be effective as a project manager. And that's very much unlike the project relationship or the project organization, where these are dedicated, focused project managers. They are trained in the project management skill area. In the weak matrix, we're using the same project manager, that same line manager from the business unit, so the same assumption would apply that the PM skills is potentially limited. The prime responsibility is functional line management, not on project management. Where in the strong matrix, we have that dedicated staff project manager, so the assumption is they will have high project management skill sets. In terms of PM availability, in the functional, it's part-time. They have ongoing line responsibilities, so therefore their availability to project management is going to be part-time only. And depending on the importance of, the priority of their line management skills versus the project management responsibilities, that part-time may be very minimal, or it could be substantial, depending again on how their departmental head, their business unit, has defined their responsibilities. From a project organization viewpoint, their only focus is on project management, so they have full-time availability for project management. The weak, the same as the functional, because it is the same manager from the line management area, again is going to be a part-time. Where the strong matrix, the assumption is because they are the staff PM, their availability is going to be 100%. In terms of the authority, in a functional area, it's going to be a wide range. The functional manager is going to be using staff from only within their business unit, so the assumption may be that they will have a high degree of authority over their staff, which may be a very valid assumption, but because we're picking and choosing staff members from everywhere within the business unit, they may have some limited authority over the project team members from the different managers within the business unit, so they may have low control over that. And it'll also vary because the team members are being pulled from existing organizational responsibilities. Their relationship between existing organizational responsibilities and project responsibilities may vary, so therefore again there may be a variation of the power and the authority the functional manager is going to have. In a project organization, the PM is going to have full responsibility because the project team members report directly to the project manager for the project and are dedicated only to the project. In a weak matrix, I think the assumption is in the weak matrix the PM authority is going to be very low. The PM has come in from one business area and is pulling staff from across the entire organization. Typically in a weak matrix, which is one of the reasons it's called weak matrix, is the PM has very low, very limited authority over the project team members. When push comes to shove and the project team members have organizational line responsibilities as well as project responsibilities, because they report to different business units, their line organizational responsibilities come first and project responsibilities come last. In a strong matrix, I would suggest the PM authority is in the medium area. They have some direct responsibility for the team members in their business unit, but because they are also pulling in team members from other business units, they may have limited responsibilities there. In terms of budget ownership, who has budget ownership? In a functional project, it is the functional manager. So that is a very good relationship. Your boss, if you are a functional project manager, is the person who has overall budget responsibilities. It gets even better in a project environment, in a project organization, where you yourself have direct budget responsibilities. You have been assigned the power and the authority to successfully deliver the project on time. In a weak matrix, it's going to go back to the functional manager again. And in a strong matrix, traditionally, the project manager yourself is going to have the budget responsibilities, but there may be instances where the functional manager may take on the budget responsibilities on your behalf. In terms of staffing availability, in a functional relationship, it is absolute part-time. You are pulling in your team members from other functional responsibilities. Depending on how they're assigned to your project, you may have limited control over how much time they spend on their functional responsibilities and how much they spend on the project responsibilities. Staff availability in a project environment is going to be high. The team members are assigned directly to your project and are responsible only to your project. In the weak matrix, it's going to go back to the part-time as well. They're being pulled from across the entire organization. And again, in the weak matrix, the project manager may have limited power and authority to ensure the team members are reporting to completing project responsibilities. In a strong matrix, experience has shown that it's going to be some part-time and some full-time. Much like the project manager has direct project responsibilities in the strong matrix, traditionally in a strong matrix, some of the team members will also be assigned to the project full-time, but some of them drawn in from other business units may be on a part-time. And finally, in our comparison, in the functional area, in terms of staff skills, the expectation is you're going to have a wide range of skills from the staff. They're being pulled in from the functional unit, so traditionally they would have strong knowledge of how the business unit itself functions, but they may have limited specific knowledge to complete their skills and assignments as required for project responsibilities. In terms of staff skills from a project viewpoint, it should be high. They are dedicated project team members, picked, chosen, hired to have the skills necessary to be successful in project delivery. In a weak matrix, because you're pulling in across various business units, you're going to have a wide range of skills. Again, skills should be very focused on business knowledge, business unit knowledge and responsibilities, but may be varied in terms of direct skills related to project delivery, and the same will apply in the strong matrix. It may be a little more focused because, again, if you're having some full-time staff, but the expectation is in a strong matrix, you will have a wide range of skills. So with this comparison grid, you have a pretty good breakdown of the pros and cons of delivering a project in a functional environment versus a project environment versus a weak matrix versus a strong matrix environment. Be aware of the issues, be aware of the concerns raised in this comparison grid when you are assigned project management responsibilities in one of these variations or variation of each of these project organizational structures. One final component we need to look at in terms of project organizational structures is a more detailed look at the organizational structure. What is the corporate identity? How does the corporation see itself in the business environment? Is it seen as a leader? Does it see itself as a leader? Does it see itself as a follower, an innovator? Does the organization see itself as a good corporate citizen, a green citizen if you want to look at it that way? What is the organizational identity? You need to ensure that your project is going to operate consistent with the overall organizational identity. We've talked already about the human resources aspect. What's the difference between the corporate emphasis and the individual emphasis? Is it more important to ensure our employees are successful, are happy? Or is it more important to drive the bottom line to satisfy the stakeholders and overall profitability of the organization? How well or how do the various business units integrate? Do the business units share for the corporate best good, or do the business units compete? And again, the competition could be for the overall organizational best interests as well. I've been involved with organizations where the corporate culture is business units must compete. There are limited funds available. There are limited marketing opportunities available. There is limited everything available, and therefore each business unit needs to compete against its fellow business units to get the marketing dollars, to get the R&D dollars. What's the overall organizational culture? What's the organization's culture in terms of risk? Does it embrace risk? Does it take on risky projects with the expectation that risky projects will result in breakthrough initiatives, breakthrough opportunities that will drive the company successfully forward, doing things that their competition hasn't done? Or is the organization very risk intolerant? They need safety, they need security. They will not take on risky projects. They will wait and deal with the status quo, or they will wait until proven processes are in place to allow them to move forward. What's the organizational focus? Is the organization focused on short-term or long-term? Is it more important to be profitable in the next quarter, or is it more important to be profitable over the next 5 years? And finally, what is the overall maturity in the company? What is the project management maturity? Are there existing project managers in place? Is project delivery principles well embraced in the organization? What's the product maturity that you're developing your project for? Is the product in the initiating stage of its life cycle, in the growth stage, in the maturity stage, or in the decline stage? There's going to be more money available, more risk interest in products that are in the initiating and growth stages than are in the maturity and decline stages. And what's the overall company maturity? Is this a new breakthrough startup company, or is this a very established, very mature company? You need to be aware of the overall organizational culture, because how the organization operates is going to dictate, is going to influence how your project must operate to be successful in the company. In this nugget, we focused on project organizational structures. What is the organizational environment within which your project is going to deliver? We talked about the framework, the organization structure. Is your project being delivered in a functional organizational structure, a project-based organizational structure, a matrix-based organizational structure? Whether it's a weak matrix or a strong matrix, we focused on the differences between functional project delivery, project-based project delivery, and matrix-based project delivery, and we looked at the pros and cons of each of those. And there is no right answer. There is no answer that says a weak matrix, a strong matrix, a project, a functional type project relationship is right. It's simply important that you know which environment you're working within, and you understand the pros and cons, the consequences of dealing within each of those. We developed the effective project structure and the management structures in place, and we looked at the organizational culture. What is the organizational culture? Is this a profit-driven company, an employee-driven company? Are the business units integrated? Are the business units competitive? We looked at the risk strategy for the company. Is this company willing to take on risks for breakthrough initiatives, to do things that the competition hasn't been done before? Or is this a very risk-intolerant company, in which case we will take tried, proven approaches to successful delivery? We need to understand what the overall organizational environment within which we're going to deliver our project is, and then we will be successful delivering our project. This concludes our nugget on project organizational structures. I hope this video has been informative for you, and thank you very much for viewing.